Greetings, all praise the King. Continuing in our discussion of the beast state, particularly when it comes to, hacking. Hacking is just a word that has a technical and a general definition. So I'm using this term generally, as far as infiltration. I've done discussion about this, much of it in my oldest account, which was hacked. So, it was Ross Reports. I'm unaware of what has happened to that account because I haven't visited it in years, nor do I really care to. This is a process. Everything is Jah will. And so, the evil one will attempt to fight against you. And you must know what the evil one is doing to defend yourself. It's as the raven that comes and takes the seed by the wayside. That raven represents Satan. Satan is the fallen angel. Satan uses his forces to fight his war. These forces known as man's rule. Even the beast declared 666. Even said to represent Nero, Caesar. Caesar is man's way. That is empowered man to glorify himself even above that of his own maker. And in doing this, he has devised his mechanisms of warfare, sometimes nearly undetectable, because Satan, we know, is represented by the snake. The snake slithers through the grass and is not easily seen. And so when the snake strikes, you must know the snake is there. Otherwise, you'll get bit. When you get bit, you get infected. That's what a lot of these viruses were. The same people that were developing the program to stop the virus were sending the virus. And the virus was a form of branding that was occurring. As I mention often, this branding is a witchcraft. It is a prejudice as a spell affected on people. And with this prejudice, they believe if you get a virus, you've been doing something bad. It's not the case. If you're fighting for freedom, you're going to get a virus, because those that choose to live without freedom will fight against you. And they know how to use these machines because they design them. And their government protects them. If you are infiltrated, you may make a report to the local police. Are the police going to help you? Well, not if they are the ones that are doing the infiltrating. This mark, many know now, is the microchip. However, this has evolved even from Genesis, the Tower of Babel, where man thought he could reach the heights, and even above highway, into today's modern age through the industrial period, the making of electricity, and onto the internet. This was man's glorification of himself. because, as you know, whenever these things are spoken about, people refer to them as man's marvel. A miracle. Look at this. Look at the power that man has. So they're never glorifying I Way, when it was I Way that made this possible. Man does not recognize this. So man now is in a tight situation. He's destroyed the planet. And this is obvious to those that care. And so he's got to sell his goods. And it's a hard sell. So he's projecting all his information. He calls data. And this data is going out just as old-time propaganda did, to reach the many populations and make those populations think something. And so along with this is an important concept called profiling or profiling. Profiling is the designation of numbers to characterize an individual, essentially making that individual represented by something that is unnatural and man-made. And this is obviously based on man's prejudice, because who's the one that's making the judgments to codify this programming? See? So in the new age, sometimes referred to as the digital era or the age of knowledge, is what man calls it. Still the age of prophet, man calls it age of knowledge. You've got a new language. A new language of numbers. And only some are able to speak this language. And the rest are excluded, as languages have often served as the purpose in the past. One form of this communication is hacking. If I go to an event and protest, I'm communicating. I don't like what's happening. I'm against this. If I speak into a bullhorn, I'm communicating loud. There's different forms of communication. This is a form of communication. They're communicating to us that they have chosen to go to war. People would say, this is their design. That's their internet. Their companies, they can do as they will. Yet it's their government that enforces these practices and enables them and lends power. So if they can declare war on us and their government will protect them, then we must find a way to defend ourselves. And that would be through a government, a legitimate government that works for all people. If they call themselves tyrants, they can run their government. But if they call themselves a majority rule, what they say now, democracy, it's a falsehood. So it's illegitimate. The other solution would be to have the intranet. The intranet is a form of internet where people can communicate and yet will be free from the infiltration. Iran has one. This is the real reason why these New World forces are actively provoking a war with that country, because they're attempting to get them to comply with having the internet. If they convince the world that they're threatening with nuclear weapons, they must go in there and they must put their chips into the computer databases, and so they can monitor all the activity. That's what's really happening, and it is the AI. People see this symbol and they think Illuminati. One guy accused you of watching too many YouTube videos. This is the Antichrist, and even though the state puts out videos on YouTube to counter this, it doesn't make it less true. If you look at the bill, you see the eye over the pyramid. What do those symbols represent? First, are they symbols? If we can come to agree that they are symbols, then we must say, well, that must mean they represent something. And it's fairly obvious what this thing represents. So now they've gotten their way, and they're tapping everybody's communications. Now this was all secret, and then the 9/11 happened. 911. 911 gave the justification for all the tapping and infiltration. That people are being branded as terrorists. Sometimes they're said, oh, they're on the watch list because they've been making threats. So they're going to put people on the list that are a threat. And I hope that other people could have the opportunity to share their stories if they have any. As for myself, my computer's been infiltrated so many times, and it's constantly monitored, even though there's no internet access. Now, I was discussing with somebody on the way to jail the other day when what exactly is happening. He was talking about Edward Snowden. I said, Edward Snowden, you know who Edward Snowden is? I can ask, kind of public officials, know-it-alls around, and they don't know who Edward Snowden is. But you ask just, somebody, in jail, and they're going to tell you. This is the guy that reported a lot of these programs that were taking place. And a lot of these programs coming out of the GCHQ, which is the largest collection agency for data in the world, and even larger than the NSA, which happens to be the largest branch of the United States military, which happens to be the largest military in the world. So, if you can make sense of that, then you're one above me. But these people right here, they are monitoring all people's communications. They can obtain so much wealth from knowing everything about everybody. If there's a tight network, which we know there is, they can share their data, and they can always stay on top. Probably doesn't, it explains itself. Often you think about just little scenarios. If you see somebody on the road, let's say, and they wear, red, gold, and green Rastafari, and you think, wow, Rastafari, where are they? How can I get a hold of them? How can I and I come together? That's it. They're able to come together, and they're able to not only keep us apart, but divide us because of what I call the content classification, which has to do with the profiling, otherwise referred to as class content. I believe Babylon calls this, and Babylon is the origin of the system of law. If you do the history past the Romans onto the ancient days, you'll find that their system began with this ancient Babylonian, which was forbidden by our people as Hebrews to practice this art of paganism. And it is a form of witchcraft because their system has destroyed the planet, but it remains standing. So not only did that require brute force, but it required a sophisticated confusion. The class content is going to categorize all the content. They've begun to make this into DNA sequencing, which just to recap, the DNA is just a number. It's supposed to represent who you are. They're looking at your links in your cell, and there's, they're categorizing it so they have a self exclusive set of numbers, and then they're going to try to make sense of that. And that's just basically going to be like all your activities through your life, because they're monitoring people's whereabouts. They've now got the chip in the credit cards and probably the licenses now. So if you're driving, leave your license at home, unless you want to be tracked everywhere. Now, some people say, well, I don't have anything to hide, so I don't have anything to worry about. Good for you. I have something to hide, because I am being attacked and I have to defend myself. And I'm going to keep my tactics and my strategies on how to best do that to myself. Yeah? What they're going to do is they're going to find the content. Let's say I make a video and it's kind of weak. They're going to say, oh, this video's weak. Let's spread it around, because they know the first impression is the most lasting one. They're going to find I Am Man that maybe have some kind of disagreement. They're going to find a video that the other man made, that kind of exploits that clash, and they're going to bring them together. Now, that's just one simple way they could do things. Also, provocation. Of course, there's a lot of clowns in the world today, jesters. They're dressing up, doing their dance. They want to pretend there's something they're not. And then you got the other thing, was they're taking the branding, even of the Aya, they're going to attempt to corrupt to make it of their own. So that those that don't know, that are ignorant, will have a false impression, and then whatever the symbol may be, it could be colors, it could be shapes, objects, that's going to become, it could be a person that's going to become like one of their own. For example, Martin King. For example, now they got Frederick Douglass on their coin. Caesar. And they got Frederick Douglass. And who's saying what? Maybe somebody says something about it. Are they going to project this onto others? Or are they going to infiltrate those that are speaking about these truths and make it difficult for them? So, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about what you can expect if somebody is infiltrating you. Well, your computer's going to slow down. You're going to start to see trails. You can do a net stat. Back in the day, I used to do these net stats. I get thousands of results of all the people that had currently were infiltrated into that computer. They're collecting that data from you. If you get a lot of the people now, many of these people are what are called proxies. They're working through, like, for example, Snoop, Facebook, Shitter. These companies are using their server, sometimes referred to as the cloud. Sometimes referred to as the cloud. And they're going to obtain data from that, or they're going to obtain it directly from just hacking into your server. The data is more valuable when it is not disclosed, when it is a secret. Now, apparently, according to the lawyers, you have no protection over your papers, which are now digital, because you're using a third party. However, like for my case, where you're not actually using a third party and you're not connected to the internet, you still don't have protection, apparently, because police say, well, just use another software. Nobody's really going to protect you when a drone or a satellite is used to suck up your information or to spy on you in your backyard. There's just no real protection. Now, that's for you and for me, if you be on the bottom as I am. If you're on the top, then you got protection. If you're police, then you got protection. You see how the language works to divide people. This is all class. There are people at the top. They go along, rule the world. They fly all over. They have sex with people, even underage peoples. You know, this is all exposed. They take money just without, you know, without giving. And they are the enemies of the most of the world, because the planet is now being destroyed because their structure of rule has enabled them to destroy. Even as the scripture was said, the destroyer would come. Now, if you know history and you know how their systems evolved to this state, and you don't think that they need to be eliminated, then you are one of them, and you don't want life to continue. Your computer's gonna slow. You know, you're gonna, you might have some stuff put on your computer. That's happened. You might have stuff taken off your computer. That's happened. If you got a Word document, the content inside it could be changed. That's happened. Your computer would just crash. It won't even open up. That's happened. You know, if you make videos and you go to save them and they come up differently, the sound's different, the picture's different, it's altered in some way, sometimes there's nothing there, it's been infiltrated. So, again, you don't have to be on the internet. Now, moving in the future, in this beast state, these credit cards, these microchips are being required. Even PayPal now is saying, oh, you got to update the credit card because the new credit card has a chip in it. That's the RFID. You know, and then they say, well, what's the difference between the last one? You know, because they work in little steps. But only Lord will tell you when it is time. I say that's time. Already, you know, you can see where this goes. The population's going along with it. Pokemon Go, they're going to help them pinpoint the RFID locations. And this is just a labor transfer. This whole internet has made it possible for those at the top to not have to hire people to handle a lot of these services. That's why you end up waiting on the phone so long. That's not normal. That didn't happen in the past. You just call a company, you used to talk to somebody, even say 10 or 15 years ago. Nowadays, machine. You gotta wait. That's a transfer of labor. It's not like the companies say, well, we're just going to punish the people just for being alive. They're not really trying to punish you. They're trying to save as much as possible, because it's not really, you know, a knowledge era. It's still a profit era. And this moves in a direction. Massive people end up in poverty. They can't afford to survive. And then things happen, chaos, crime. Then those at the top are going to point, say, look, we need more control, more of this artificial intelligence watching people, because it's out of control. 9/11, that's the beginning of it, the implementation of this infrastructure, to give the justification, to put the fear into people's hearts, to say, oh, because even if you think now, what if all of a sudden they eliminated all the watching? Nobody could watch anymore through these devices. Some people, probably most people, would be like, you know, that's not good. We could be under attack. So there's the perception, again, the branding is taking place to condition people to believe that this is necessary for their safety and health. Safety and health, safety and health. You gotta get the watch. You get the watch, you're giving these companies the communication information. Then they can judge you. Now you may be, oh, I don't have anything to worry about because I'm healthier than most people. Well, what if you trip and fall and bang your head? Then you won't be. And then you're gonna get taxed. See? Now, we reap what others sow. So if everybody start wearing devices and start giving power and this kind of thing, except for a few, guess where the attention is going to go? It's going to go to the few. They're called the outliers. We're the outliers. Them are the ones they want to watch. Really, truthfully, the Babylon is worried about leadership. They're worried that somebody could come along and take their position and deliver on their promise. And I hope that that person does come, because I wouldn't want to have to do it too late. But the Lord says that's what must be done.